host, Chris Baldwin, and I am here with my co-host and fight fam, Malissa Smith, women's boxing historian, and she's also an author of two wonderful books on women's boxing. And my boy, award-winning sports writer, Mr. Eddie Goldman. He's at No Holds Barred News on Patreon. We call him the conscious of combat sports. And today, folks, look, in light of the current chaos and constitutional crisis that we're currently facing from the new White House administration, I have to announce that we are going to change the format of this show. Why? Because we've got some pressing issues I think that we need to share with everyone. So it's going to be a change from sports justice to social justice. And after 120 shows on important topics ranging from sports governance to women's boxing to trans women participating in women's sports, it's our hope that we did our part to amplify our superstar women going toe to toe with not only each other, but the misogynistic world of professional boxing. I also hope that we provided you, our viewers, with a deeper understanding of just how corrupt the sport of boxing and in general, sports in general, is at every level. So, with a pivot from sports justice to social justice, we will understand, truly understand, if you guys need to or want to unsubscribe. So, you get to do that right now. Go ahead and hit that unsubscribe button because we about to get real over here. Okay, so Eddie and Melissa, look, I do want to thank you guys both for your contribution to the boxing community and for providing your expert insight and analysis over the years. Melissa, I'm going to start with you. I want to know if you have any parting words for the boxing community.
Well, I just want to thank everyone for the support. We have really tried to bring in perspectives that are not necessarily popular and that you will not find in other types of boxing or sports platforms. We really felt that we needed to dive into issues to really not be beholden to any particular line of thinking, but really, as I said, dive into the issues and in particular magnify those who have been left behind in terms of their opportunities that are given to a few, and whether that's women or trans athletes or Black athletes who are not given opportunities or any kind of marginal peoples, as well as amplifying corruption in boxing and issues that we talked about over the years with respect to amateur sports and how amateur athletes have been subject to really poor treatment by the organizations that have been, given charge to give them opportunities in the sport and have failed them miserably. So again, I'm really proud of the show that we've been able to put on. And I humbly thank everyone for tuning in and listening and giving us the respect that we have sought in terms of understanding where we were coming from and why.
Thank you. Eddie, you have any words?
Yeah, I want to thank again you two for providing this vehicle for us to talk about these issues and people who've supported us throughout. But I just would say that this change is necessitated by two very major developments in different areas. First, with boxing, we've been pointing out all these problems. Boxing is going to shit. It's losing popularity around the world. It's losing TV networks as we speak. Everything is going to go to streaming on DAZN, which almost nobody watches for boxing. DAZN is popular in countries where they show the local football leagues in Europe. But for boxing, forget it. It's less than even a niche sport. It's losing billions of dollars, and Saudi Arabia may find it in their interest to fund it, to invest in it. There are conflicting stories on all of that, but it's people don't care that much about it anymore. And we've pointed out the corruption, the greed, the stupidity, all of that, and it's still going in that direction. So I'm going to still be writing about it, but it means that there's less space for boxing media that criticizes this stuff. Virtually all the boxing media now are basically vassals and handmaidens to a guy who is an advisor to the Saudi royal court and a minister, this Turkey al-Sheikh guy. And you see more and more stories just quoting this guy like it's necessarily the truth. He even just admitted in an interview he did with Coppinger of ESPN, who is not the brightest bulb on the planet, that he was lying to people about his original explanations about what was happening in his negotiations with Canelo to get him to fight out of his weight class against Terence Crawford to bring him up 2 or 3 weights. Just ridiculous fights, ridiculous things that he wants to do. And yet people are praising this guy like he's a genius. He's a guy that has a ton of money, that has a multi-billion-dollar fund behind him, and he could throw money at a sport that's going down the tubes. And of course, people are going to take the money to fight, even if it's the odds are stacked against them. They could survive a lifetime on what they get from one fight. So that's one part of it. The other part of it, which is the macro issue, is what's happening in the United States and really the world. The whole move to authoritarianism, in particular in the United States, the attempt to completely dismantle democracy, roll back every social and political gain that people have fought and died for over 100 years, with all the fucking idiots who voted for Trump or sat out the election because they didn't like this or that about Harris. Far from perfect. A lot of criticisms could be made of that campaign. And so now what do you got? Bunch of idiots in this country. Yet there still is a movement emerging as we speak, inevitably, against this. It's raw, it's new, it's fresh, it's undeveloped, it's unorganized, it's disorganized, but it's here. Just about a few days ago, you had this five, I don't even know how to pronounce it, 50501 movement, 5051 for 50 protests in 50 states on one day, but they didn't have really a unified platform. It's unclear if any organization came out of it. Looks like a lot of the same mistakes that were made in Occupy Wall Street, except they're not hemming themselves in by focusing just on one area that's easy to attack, like they were at Zuccotti Park and a couple of other places. And they were there, it was one day. They had demonstrations for a couple of hours, and maybe in a month or two, whenever, maybe not, they'll come back. So those tactics are an improvement. And also, they were rightly calling for mass peaceful demonstrations. I'm not a pacifist, but if you're going to go beyond peaceful demonstrations, you damn well better know how to do it, when is the right time, and now is not the right time. Now you're opening yourself up to various provocateurs, agents provocateurs from the government, from the various cop agencies, and of course, from the various fascists who were just recently pardoned by who participated in the January 6th attempted failed coup attempt a couple of years ago. So this is important that people fight against this. And it's important also, the three of us have been around the block a couple of times. We've seen a few things. We've been involved in different movements of various history in various areas. And there's a lot of information an analysis that we could spread. For example, what went on in the 1930s, the whole battle against fascism, how the left movement had to change its tactics really only after Hitler and the Nazis came to power. Too late, after really screwing up, but making a lot of the same errors that we see these imbeciles now in the so-called left, who refuse to work to set up a broad, united, and popular front against fascism. They understand this in France, where they had the danger of Le Pen, and with the elections they created. And again, I my French is not particularly good, but the Nouveau Front Populaire, the New Popular Front, because they had the experience of the original Popular Front in the 30s in France, which kept domestic fascism away, but was not strong enough to keep the Nazis from marching in France, and really didn't prepare the people to resist the fight. That's something that has to be done on a grassroots level, not some clown going in front of a cell phone camera and pulling a stunt and putting it up on one of these video platforms that is owned and controlled by one fascist or another. It means people directly working to liberate themselves, getting involved. So it's their movement. They're not spectators that are watching some Jake Paul type stunt under the name of whatever progressive veneer they give to it.
Right.
So that's some of the stuff that we have to do. And yes, of course, you still have to enjoy yourself. Sports is part of that. Learning self-defense is part of that. Learning the lessons from the combat sports is part of that in terms of this whole battle. The famous quote from Malcolm X that I use a lot, that if you're interested in freedom, you need some judo, you need some karate, you need all the things that would help you fight for freedom. Now, he said that on March 29th, 1964, and it was in the Audubon Ballroom in New York. And judo had much more grappling in those days, Niwaza, than it does since it became an Olympic sport and currently. And karate there were full contact karate fights, a lot more of them that were very similar to kickboxing fights. So what he was basically saying is you need grappling and you need striking for self-defense. You need boxing. You need wrestling. You need various forms of submission fighting. You need all these types of things. You need to know how to do judo throws. You need all these types of things. So the combat sports come into play there, where you could watch boxing and watch the highest level of technique, not the lowest level of technique that you see in UFC, where the striking sucks, where the wrestling is you push somebody up against a cage, and where there are the two or three submissions that once in a while are used. No, there's so much more to learn. That's where the combat sports come in, aside from just enjoyment. And you got to do what is enjoyable to you, whether it's music, dance, movies, whatever, whatever you can name. You can't stop that and just become a one-dimensional wooden person.
No, this is not the
So,
time to be a bystander. This is a
right.
five-alarm fire. Five-alarm fire, folks. So
Absolutely. Daily.
daily.
Every day is a five-alarm
And
fire.
not chasing the executive order that's meant
No,
to distract us, paying attention to what
what they're
Elon
really
is doing,
doing.
right? I mean, to bring in your own server and tap into the government's tax paying system, treasurer's system. You don't know
Payment
if
is
he's
not even
planted
taxes.
malware, right? You don't know if he's
It's
planted malware,
payments.
spyware, and now you've data scraping, right? On top of all of that. Oh my gosh. So I'm
That's
happy.
every American has a social security
Yes.
number.
Yeah.
Everyone who's ever received a check, whether it's an
Everybody, right?
individual. everyone who gets disability, everyone who gets Social Security, every person, every school that gets funding, every single check that's cut goes through the Treasury Department. That's trillions of dollars a year. And, you know, as we were saying earlier, when we were talking about doing the show today, the Chinese and the Russians hackers have been trying to get into these systems for years.
Right.
This is a hacker's wet dream.
Right. And
And there they are.
Yeah.
Walking in. Yesterday, they walked into the Department of Education. A group of United States congresspersons, Democratic congresspersons, attempted to get into the building, and some thug refused to let them in.
The People's Building.
Yes, the People's Building, the Department of Education, where Musk and his little boy toy minions showed up with their servers to destroy the Department of Education. And what did they do? They're taking all the data. Just today, just right now, today, it was announced that NIH, the National Institute of Health, has cut billions of dollars in biomedical funding, effective immediately. That means cancer research, everything that university hospitals do to further science, to further medical science, to treat disease, to treat cancer, to treat COVID,
anything, right,
is gone. So what does that say about what America is supposed to be? What is the United States of America supposed to be now with nothing left?
Right. Well, this pain, this intentional infliction of pain.
Yes.
They want to, it's a means to break us, and then the billionaires can just offer us whatever. That's the goal, I think, the ultimate goal. But how do we fight back at this critical stage in the game? They're not fully transitioned. They don't have full levers of power just yet as their confirmation process goes on. I know there's a call to action that we can do with folks like there's an app called 5Calls, which is great because now you can see save NIH and the NSF's research funding is one of those things. And it really is about contacting your senators. And with this app, I don't know if you guys can see that, but this 5Calls app is great. And you just click on, actually, you need to click on everything on here because, like I said, this is a 5-alarm fire, but we have to ask to protect Medicaid funding. Are you kidding me right now? Are you kidding me right now?
You know how, I mean, just the number of every person, just to give you a scenario, if you have a child who is disabled, or you have, somebody gets into an accident and they lose their ability to walk and they're paraplegic or they're quadriplegic, they have no way of earning a living anymore. And what happens to families is they get their kids on Medicaid and they receive support from Medicaid for their health care and for home care services that they often require, especially for traumatic brain injuries and so on. And these carry over into adulthood. So you will have young adults, older adults who are on Medicaid for this. My own husband just got on Medicaid for his severe dementia so that I can help get assistance with home care. If this is stopped, what happens then? What happens to people that have to go to work and they can't care for their child during the day when they go to work? And yet they have Medicaid and they have home care services to assist in that process. It's not abrogating all care. It's saying, I need help, I need assistance. And that's what Medicaid provides. It also provides health care for 70 to 80 million Americans. It's like over a quarter of all American people. And then if you look at Medicare and Medicaid, you're at almost 180 million people, 160 million people. That's half the people in the United States receive Medicare or Medicaid. as their first line, their only line of healthcare.
Right. And Americans are only getting older.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're talking about when they said, Democrats wanted to have death
Oh, death
panels.
panels,
Right.
please.
But what are you doing to the American citizen right now? Right? You're creating that chaos,
You're
creating a
creating
future.
chaos and fear.
Right. Right. So, anyway, folks,
You
you do need to contact your congressperson, your senators, and blow their phone up every single day, right? Blow
absolutely
their phone up every single day because to me, the Democrats are not doing enough. I want to see
no.
nothing.
somebody
Ain't
in
doing
front of a
shit.
microphone, like, making noise. Make
There
some
there are a
damn
few
noise.
there are a few that are doing the work. Jasmine Crockett, AOC. My Congressman Dan Goldman has been
Yeah,
fantastic on all
those
of
are
this
all good.
stuff.
Yeah.
When the Trumpies cut off the spigot for every single federal grant, I got to say Goldman's office was amazing in terms of their outreach across the community to organizations that receive funding, and like constantly coming, saying, hello, hello, get in touch, get in touch. Let's see how we can work this through.
Yeah.
I know
A-
up in, yeah, so
And
very important.
on the yeah, there was some like Representative McIver from Newark, New Jersey,
Yeah,
and some others that have been speaking out and doing some things. And there have been others that have been either paralyzed or collaborating.
yeah.
Schumer ain't doing shit.
Ugh,
Fetterman, the
Ugh.
Bernie Sanders guy, is voting for Trump's appointees, his
yep,
nominees. So this is something really to look into what's happened with the so-called left. When he ran, a lot of people said the guy's too far left. He can't win. And now he's collaborating with a fascist. I think there are some very, very important lessons from the past and in a very general sense to learn from the struggle against fascism in Germany and Europe. And one of those involved shortly after the Nazis took power, there was a very famous incident, which I encourage people to read about, the burning of the Reichstag, the parliament building.
yeah,
And the Nazis blamed the communists, who were then the second largest party in Germany. A lot of people don't know that in the Reichstag. They had, I think, something like around 100 or so uh, members in the Reichstag, in the parliament, and they arrested a couple of communist leaders and accused them of this. And there was a trial. And the communists, again, with all the baggage and all the crap, and I'm not at all defending the general direction of the KPD, the Communist Party of Germany, but they used the trial to expose the fascists and the lies against them. And Georgy Dimitrov, a Bulgarian who was active and eventually became head of the Communist International, was on trial with some other communists, and they were acquitted. And there's a famous statement that he lays out because the Nazis said, see these communists, they're violent, they're burning down the Reichstag, blah, 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 blah. And it was a provocation set up by the Nazis. His response was to the effect of mass work, mass activity, mass opposition, and the united front, no adventurism. These are the alpha and omega of our tactics. That's something we really have to learn from today because they're going to be various anarchists, provocateurs, idiots, individualists who running around want to do anything but have mass work, mass activity, mass opposition, and the united front. Because if this movement is going to be effective, it needs to be not only a people's movement in name and slogans, but something that the people are directly involved in and running, and not, as I said earlier, not spectators. And that was one of the big problems of the various left movements in the 20s and 30s in Europe. That, yeah, they said a lot of good things and people voted for them because their platform seemed better. But when it came time to act, they didn't act. There wasn't a general strike in Germany when the Nazis took over. There was weak opposition. That's because of the top-down approach that these leftist parties took. And this is something that has to go on today. So, yeah, when these politicians today, the Democrats do some good things, fine. And of course, vote for them. But don't rely on them. Create your own organizations, create your own grassroots organizations, and create your own grassroots media because the people, first of all, are tuning out of all this corporate media in general. I
Right.
mean, the
Legacy media
ratings for
sucks.
even MSNBC and CNN are in the toilet. If some network had the kind of ratings that they have 10 or 15 years ago, they'd be off the air so fast, and they'd just be putting on reruns of cartoons or old movies instead of this stuff. People have had it with their ineffectiveness and with their stupidity and with their lies and all the crap that they're pulling. So we need our own media, and for now, we have all these tools to create it and do it. So that's important to do. Build our own media, build our own independent support, build our own grassroots organizations and movements. Organizations are important. You can't ignore them. And because in the 60s, people were weak on organization and, of course, program and politics, what do we have left over from that period? Some books, some memories, some lectures on college campuses, but those organizations all basically all collapsed or went to shit. So
Well, the thing is, I see, based on all that, we've witnessed over our course of history, are those organizations like that you're talking about, and like in my community, the Panther Party, they're all targeted by these authoritarian
Yes.
institutions and then killed or jailed or disbanded, infiltrated, and then they go away. I mean, so how are people supposed to fight back?
because you don't put a drug dealer in charge of your political party. You don't say that the lumpens, the criminal class, are the vanguard and forget about the working class. You don't try to create a so-called vanguard party. You don't do any of that shit. And for various reasons, the Black Panther Party, the Young Lords Party, all these types of organizations split, collapsed, got corrupted, and fell apart within a matter of years. And yeah, they faced repression by the government, but every left organization from that period, and I was very active then, and believe me, I knew people everywhere in all these organizations. They all fell apart. The Panthers, the Lords, the Maoists, the Trotskyites, the anarchists, the Social Democrats, you name it, they all went to shit and they didn't have to. And it wasn't primarily because of government repression. That could make you stronger in some ways. It was because they were flawed. They had flawed politics and flawed organization,
Well,
but
what do you think about the call for a general strike, trying to get 11 million people to strike?
who's going to do a general's? Who's going to do it?
Well,
I mean, there
I
is a
think
call.
there's a call,
Who
but
put out the call? There's not even a name attached.
GeneralStrikeUS.com.
Who? Yeah, a website, a social media site. Who
I
is that?
think,
Who's behind that?
but
What support do they? How many millions of workers do they have in their organization to pull something like that off? It's all bullshit.
I'd like to say that we do have organizations that exist now that are very strong. We have labor unions that, to one degree or another, are very strong, very vocal,
Women's
and
March Foundation.
are
Yep.
very important. And I think to the point of staying away from the notion of vanguards and staying away from the notions of political polemics and ideological fervor, and sort of, which is just as dictatorial as everybody else. I think if we look at existing organizations such as labor unions and really start to link through the working class issues and realize that this is all of us, that we all need health care, that we care about our brothers and sisters, whatever color they happen to be, that we care about immigrants. And if we start to make these linkages and treat each other with a little modicum of respect through that process, you build that automatically. You build that sense of comradeship. Listen, this is, as you say, a 5-alarm fire. We don't have the luxury or the time to care about whether somebody's a Trotskyite, a communist, a socialist, a dyed-in-the-wool, FDR Democrat who came from that, raised by people in the Depression that have a specific point of view and perspective. We don't have the time for that. We have to fight this now, immediately. We have no opportunity to wait for the rights to allow them a rights
Right.
moment.
4 years is a long time to be
4 years
dealing
is
with
a
this.
long
Well,
time. Look
they're
where
going
we
to
are
pull
in
something
3
like that.
weeks.
Expect that they're going to pull something.
Of course
like
they are. But what's happened now is you've got workers, federal employees have, along with existing district attorneys and so on, have been successful in the courts so far for some of the most egregious actions of Musk et al. Right? You've got TROs all over the place. That's essentially stopping Musk and his tracks in the Treasury Department legally. Now, whether they actually do it is another story.
Right.
But they are forbidden from, removing that server or doing anything with the data they've collected in all of these places. You have FBI agents, their unions. You've got the federal workers unions coming in and going to court and saying, no, you can't fire people. So you stop the firings, firing people from USAID. People have rights. They are civil servants. Civil servants have rights. There are laws and rules in government. And so using some of those levers, there was an action that happened. I think it was I'm forgetting which building it was, but it wasn't the VA, it was something else, where people learned that Musk et al. Were going to show up and start their little march, and they all came out en masse, and the Musk people left. They never.
Oh, good.
Okay, so there needs to be sort of that kind of thinking of anticipating where are they going, how do we prevent, what are the actions that we take, what are the legal actions that we take, what are the grassroots actions that we take where people can show up on these things, what are the things like 50 states, 50 capitals, one day, 1 hour, whatever. Those kinds of actions are fantastic. I'm just seeing on social media there's a lot of noise going on about on February 28th, economic blackout. That means don't shop local. Do not order from Target, Walmart, Amazon, all of the big guys. Just say no to the big guys. If you need something that day, go to the local bodega. I mean, if you absolutely have to go to CVS to pick up medication, go to CVS. But you don't need to go there to buy, Dawn dishwashing liquid.
Who's organizing that?
Don't know. It's just out on the web. And I've seen it from congressional people. I've seen it from all sorts of people.
Another top-down, non-popular, non-mass movement that's
They got
performative,
to
and it's going
start
to have
somewhere, Eddie. They
But
got
you
to
gotta,
start
you
start
gotta,
somewhere.
you start with mass organization, mass demonstrations. The rallies of the federal workers were spontaneous and really, really good, and it has to continue and
yes,
has
it
to
will.
go on. But these things on social media are just they've been called before. That's not how things are going to be
They're not, but
unless you
it's
create an organization.
not necessarily, but it gets people thinking that they can do something. Okay.
It's a
And
call to
maybe
action. Yes.
it's a call to action, and not everybody is an organizer. Not everybody knows how to do that. The organizers will surface. Look at the brilliance of the Black Lives Matter movement. The things that happened organically at the beginning of that movement were really something. Now been crushed and they're gone. But there were a lot of beautiful things that happened out of that. That put together these enormous rallies and this is in the time of COVID and everybody masked up and everything else doing these fantastic things. So there is that opportunity. This is
Yes.
3 weeks. But so if somebody,
And that was
if
less than 5 years ago, which is
I
why
know,
the pessimism that people have and is being spread, particularly by Democratic Party leaders, is so ridiculous. This is just less than 5 years ago. We're not talking about 1968.
I
We're
know,
talking
5 years
about
ago.
2000,
So
Yeah.
that's 2020 we're talking about. Okay. So
2020 rather. Yeah.
yeah, it's
Been
2025.
around too long. I get my years mixed.
Yeah, so I think there is that opportunity. I don't have a problem with saying, okay, everybody, people will or won't shop on the 28th, but it gets people thinking. And when you see every single day in New York City, you've got something going on, whether they're out in front of Chuck Schumer's house going, get the fucking work,
Hmm.
asshole, or doing work for immigrants everywhere in this city. Every single day, there is something going on for immigrants. Um, and it means organizing across, like, where is the work being done? For instance, if immigration is one area that you want to focus on, and that's another thing, there's so much. So how do you need broadness, but you also need to particularize within certain
Well, at
constituencies.
this point, it's all about human rights. I mean, the guy is
Yes,
literally stripping away our freedoms
our
and
freedoms, our
right, and it
rights,
needs to
everything.
roll under that freedom banner. Everything that we're
Yes,
talking about right now is about our
absolutely.
rights and our freedoms. And this
And
dude is just taking that shit.
listen, we literally stripping out science, okay? Taking down all this shit off of CDC's website and scrubbing it for the word gender,
Well,
for
luckily,
this,
there's
for
an
that.
archive.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So you've got science that happens that says, oh, women, Black men are maybe more susceptible to high blood pressure. So let's see why, right? Because it used to be science only looked at Black men. So now science says, oh, I mean, white men. So now science says, oh, different groups, different ethnicities, different genders react to health differently. So let
Right.
us do the science on that. So what are they doing? They're stripping it.
Right.
They're stripping the fucking science. This
Well,
is Nazi Germany. This is
Nazi USA, no fascist
this is
USA.
Mussolini.
Yeah.
This is East Germany.
Trumpolini.
Okay, this is fascism 101. This
Apartheid
is what
Clyde,
they're
he's
doing.
trying to bring the apartheid back.
Yes. So he's putting sanctions on South Africa and saying, oh, but white Afrikaners who are like, oh, they're so terribly treated in South Africa can come here. First of all, which fucking South Africans want to come here other than Nazi boy?
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
know.
all I
Sorry.
know is we're going to wrap it up for today, but all I know is that everyday people, we have a way of fighting back. It's not good. Some of it is going to be in the streets. Some of it has to be, going through your elected officials to make them fucking work, do the job that we hired them to do.
Yep.
And really focusing on turning inward so that we are taking care of ourselves. Because right now, like, I mean, seriously, you need to learn how to grow your own food. You need to get your own water purification system. You guys need to have your own folks responding to fires and all types of stuff. Okay. I learned the other day that Jennifer Aniston had a private fire department to take care of her, to put out the fires around her house during the LA fire. I was like, she hired a private response team. That is what we're dealing with. So communities like black, historically black communities like Altadena, burns all the way down. They don't have a private, mind you,
No,
they don't have a private fire response team. So
no.
I'm just, the wealth inequality coupled with this nonsense that's going on right now. I'm just saying white people need to wake up, right? Y'all have to come to, because I mean, I can help. I can amplify some messages, but we got to get out in these streets. We got to fight back. So let's
We,
let's keep
we
hope
do.
alive. Keep hope alive.
And we have to adopt again another slogan that
Right.
used to be popular on the left. An injury to one is an
Is
injury
injury
to
to all.
all.
Yes,
That's
to
right.
all.
That's what I'm talking
Because
about.
Absolutely.
this
That right
ridiculous
there.
debate in the Democratic Party leadership about why they lost an election that they should have romped and won was, should we have talked about the economy and egg prices, or should we have talked about immigration or LGBTQ rights? Guess what? Can you walk and chew gum at the same
Ay, ay,
time?
ay. Right.
They're all part of your program. And the leadership of the Democratic Party abandoned working people. This is why when you look at the demographics of who voted for them, the more college education you have, the more you vote Democratic. It used to be the other way around. Only what, about a third, whatever the number is, of the people in the United States have college degrees. So it's going after the elite. What happened going lower and deeper to the masses of people? A lot of those people who didn't vote were black and Latino people, working class and poor people who they weren't going to vote for Trump, but they stayed home
Right.
incorrectly, but they stayed home. And because of this and that, they didn't like about the Democrats and all the defects. Well, look what the hell we have now.
Right. Well, all I know is we need to keep pressing our message forward, get people mobilized, and get out there to fight this fascist regime, corrupt as hell regime that we have in the office. So, any parting words from you, Eddie, before we wrap it up? Go ahead and tell the people where they can find you.
Keep struggling, keep fighting against the grain, keep up the struggle. It's a long struggle. Learn from the historical lessons of the past, study them if you don't know about them. Again, with the internet, there's a ton of resources for free online. You just got to go to Google search for this kind of stuff, and you'll find a lot of very helpful and useful information, and learn what applies from the past, learn what they did right, learn what they did wrong, but learn and apply that and build those mass movements, create those organizations, and keep on fighting. And that's where the culture of the combat sports will help you, learning how to fight both physically and mentally and politically.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Melissa, tell the folks where they can find you, your parting
I'm
words.
at, yeah, I'm at Girl Boxing now on all platforms. I'm mostly on Blue Sky these days, a little bit on Threads, a little bit on Instagram, a little bit on Twitter. Twitter is just the boxing stuff.
You're
Uh,
still on Twitter?
Boxing.
Oh, my word. Okay.
It's the only place I can communicate with women's
Yeah,
female boxers. They're
I
not
get
I
it.
don't even
that and
post,
Facebook.
I even stopped posting the boxing stuff on Twitter because what's the point?
No, as I said, it's the only way I'm able to communicate with female
Yeah,
boxers, pretty much.
yeah.
So listen, don't despair. You are not alone. No one is alone here. We may feel like islands, but we are not alone. Even though we are on our own, it does not mean we are alone. I was saying this to my family today. There's like a lot of bird flu killing birds in the zoos in New York City, in Bronx Zoo and Queens Zoo today. And I put out a thing, listen, we know we fought COVID. We know what to do. We know how to have hand sanitizers. We know how to wear masks. We know how to social distance. We know how to do
Right.
it. And thank God we had Dr. Fauci to help us learn it. We're on our own now, but we can do this. And whether it's wearing a mask in public or calling your senators and your congresspeople every day about an issue, or calling 4 times the same person, 1 time for each issues, or going on a demonstration, just or supporting somebody financially who's in trouble, or volunteering, any of these things that you can do and that you have that capacity to do, you should do, because we are all in this together, and we are each other's keepers in the true sense of the true meaning of that. If you believe in what the United States is in its best sense, if you are a patriot in that best sense, then that's the work we have to do. We fought fascism and won before, and we will win again.
That's right. That's right. Thank you, guys. So if you're listening to us now, I want you guys to go to the 5 apps on your iPhones or Google Play stores and download that. They have several issues that are really, really important that I think everybody needs to get. The Oppose the Save Act, which is another voter suppression bill. I mean, these guys just don't ever stop. We have to protect Medicaid funding. So and fight Elon's government takeover. So you guys get on that app, call, write letters to your Congress people, call your local Congress city council person, call them. Okay, they need to be up on this as well. There are plenty of, I believe, grassroots organizations organizing protests and a lot of union activity. If you have the opportunity to join a union, pay the dues, join the union. We need more union members. Keep our middle class strong, because someone's out to destroy all of that. I can be found, folks, on Blue Sky at Fight Goddess, Blue Sky. Um, I'm not posting as much on Instagram because I'm really over the meta platforms. I still log in there every now and then because my friends like to send me funny videos. So I go over there for that. But outside of that, you guys, that is all we have for you today. Thank you for
Oh,
hanging in there with us. We
let me
appreciate you.
add one.
What?
Yeah, you could find me at NHP News on Blue Sky. I still keeping. I'll post once in a while, but less and less on Twitter.
Mhm.
But I'm still keeping all that shit open because there's a lot of information and connections of people who do use those platforms like Facebook and Twitter and those types of things. And still doing the Patreon, patreon.com/ Eddie Goldman, or check out what I'm doing at eddiegoldman.com. So
Right
keep in
on.
touch that way.
That's right. All right. Well, look, folks, that's all we have for you today. Power to the people. Boom.